Manchester City are facing 115 charges for breaches of financial fair play and a few other things. I want to see what would happen if they got the most severe punishment that you could imagine. Now, there are some that talk about them being kicked out of the leagues altogether, etc., etc. So what I've done is I've bankrupted Manchester City. Completely removed all of their income, removed all their staff, removed all their players. Everything's gone. So let's have a look at what happened in the first season. Now, you can see on this screen that they're out of administration, and there is a reason for that. And you can see their bank balance is 105 million. They've got a transfer budget of 56 million. This is in the National League. They're going up to League 2 next season. So let's have a look at what happened if we go to landmarks. So Micah Hamilton and Ben Knight were appointed captain and vice. On the 29th of September, Eddie Berth took over the club. It was a tycoon takeover. They got a tycoon takeover. Oh my, this is going to be interesting now. So they left administration on that day, which means the transfer ban goes completely, which now means they've got money to spend. Now, they haven't appointed a manager. I find that quite interesting. You can see all the staff are on quite low wages. And John Joe Fradley has led the team, 30-year-old assistant manager. It's very, I mean, if we look, I left them in their main competitions as well. We should just point that out. So they won the Vanarama National League, 89 points. They were knocked out third round of the FA Cup, semi-finals of the FA Trophy, group stage of the Champions League. Let's just have a look how they got on. If we go to stages and we go to group stage, so I don't know what group they're in. They were a Man City. They lost all bar one. They drew with RB Salzburg at home in the Champions League. So that's their first season. Let's have a quick look as well. Let's just go to their schedule. They're still getting 50,000 at home, which fair play. You know, that the 53,000 there for Oldham. That's a derby game. Fair play to them. So they're going up to League 2 next season. And with no transfer bans, that means they could spend a bit of money. Now, they have brought in a few players, obviously, after that transfer ban got lifted. Danny Rose, Dan Gosling all came in on free transfers. He's now retired. Danny Rose is still there. His contract runs until 2025. When did he retire? Let's have a look. He retired at the end of the season. Okay, so did he actually make any appearances? He played 6 games. Not great. Did they let anybody... A couple of players left on loan as well. I know, Emilio Lawrence and Kane Taylor both left. So it's going to be an interesting summer for them because they have now got the opportunity to get back to where they were. Can they do it in double time? Now, obviously, a tycoon takeover at this level is interesting because you still have financial fair play that you have to abide by. Now, the maximum allowed is £2.5 million a week on wages. That is for the National League. They only spend 140,000, so they've got a hell of a lot of, a hell of a lot of space there. Let's see how they get on in the second season, then in League 2, and see if they can go back-to-back promotions, back-to-back champions, maybe. It's going to be a tougher league, especially with this youth team. So let's see how they get on. Right, season 2 is done. Well, let's see how they got on. And they are back-to-back promotion winners. And this time, they have absolutely walked the league. I mean, walked it. So having a quick look at their finances, you can see that they peaked at around 90 million. They're down here currently, but overall balance 78.087 million. That's pretty decent. And they've obviously got that tycoon owner. But if we look at their sponsorships, none of it's like massively high, but they are signed for long terms. So main kit, 200,000, training. It is all investments. We can see it down here. Season tickets, obviously they get a bulk. You got 50,000 seat stadium. They got 20 million from season tickets, but they got an investment of 57 million pounds, which we can see here, and that is why their bank balance now looks so healthy. However, financially, they're not okay. They're not okay. Remember, you don't get the TV money. You haven't got the competition money, and if you're spending money like it's going out of fashion, you're going to be in trouble. However, they are doing fine on FFP. So let's have a quick look at the competitions. In terms of the league, absolutely walked in 119 points, 46 games. I think they lost one. Let's have a quick look. I did have a look before. So they lost 3, drew 5, scored 100 goals, and only conceded 35 over the season. Fourth round of the FA Cup, and they won the Bristol Street Motors Trophy, formerly the Papa Johns. Okay, let's have a look at the players then. They actually utilised the loan systems really well. So they brought in Hello Velez on loan from Tottenham. He got 31 goals. Liam Delap, he scored 22. Marquinhos was signed on loan from, I think it's from Arsenal. Yeah. So, and he scored 8 goals. He played in the Championship last season. And so they got Sasa Lukic in on loan. He played a couple of games, and he's 28 years old. He got him on loan from Fulham. They really did utilise the loan system very well. Bailey Peacock Farrell played 50 games, only conceded 42 goals over the course of the season, 28 of those in the league. He did really well. Obviously, he played a couple of international games as well. So he looks to be a real steal. And he's a free transfer this season, brought in from Burnley, who released him. So they're doing really well. I mean, they did sign Anderson Arroyo. He was released by Liverpool. Finally, his contract was up. I mean, you look at all the loans he had when he was at Liverpool: Mallorca B, Ghent, Mlada Blasovic, Salamanca, Alaves, Andorra, and Burgos. And then obviously he went to Man City. He was the kind of a mainstay of their defence. Pretty good signing. If we just have a quick look in there, they spent £925,000 on transfers, and the biggest part of that was Dimitris Giannis from Norwich, which could rise to just under £900,000. Left wing back, made one appearance. When did they sign him? They signed him in January. No, they didn't. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong player. They signed him in January, 31st January, and he made one game. Was he injured at all? No injuries either. So it's really weird that that's their big signing, and he didn't play any games. Have they appointed a manager yet? They have. Vincent Kompany is in as manager of Manchester City. Vinny Kompany, I presume he got sacked as he didn't get sacked. Wow. Whoa. Okay. So he didn't get sacked as manager of Burnley. He just left to go to Man City. I mean, and he took his assistant with him as well. Okay. I mean, what I would say about that, I would say that, you know, Man City are one of Vincent Kompany's favourite teams. You know, whenever you load this game, it's always there that he wants to manage Manchester City. So I suppose by doing it at this level, he has a chance to build such a dynasty. It's going to be interesting throughout this to see how long he actually stays with the club. Because if we have a look at his happiness, has a preference to be a director of football for Anderlecht, chairperson, has a preference to be a manager of Manchester City, and he's pleased to be in charge of one of his favourite clubs. I mean, that makes sense. Let's have a look as well where a few players ended up. So Pep Guardiola is now back at Bayern Munich. What has he done since he went back? Let's have a look. He was hired just in July, and they won the Super Cup. As that, I don't think their league might not have finished yet. 24-25, they won the league as well. Why is that on there? Very, very weird. Anyway, what about Erling Haaland? Let's have a look where he went. Now, Erling Haaland ended up in Spain. He ended up at Real Madrid. See, he scored 30 goals in 32 league appearances this season. And he scored 22 in 27 last season. What about the other players, though? Let's have a look at a few other ones. Bernardo Silva is at Al Ittihad. He's played 34 league appearances this year, scoring 26 goals. He got 31 assists. 31 assists. That is just mental. He's got 21 goals in 27 last year with 10 assists. He got man of the match 17 times this year. That is ridiculous. Okay. I mean, it's going to take something to top that, let's be honest. Well, Julian Alvarez went to Spain as well as Haaland, and he went to Barcelona. He's got 15 goals in the league for them this year and 3 in Europe with 5 assists. So not bad at all. Who won the league? Let's have a look. If we go to that there. Real Madrid won the league this year. Oh, no, it hasn't finished yet. So Real Madrid are holders. So that league hasn't finished just yet. Okay, so we're going to jump forward again a couple of years now just to see how they got on. We're going to probably jump forward the next 2 or 3, and then we'll come back and see how they're doing. All right, well, let's catch up with Manchester City. It's May 2027, and let's start with what happened in the 25-26 season. Now, as you can see right here, Man City went back-to-back-to-back champions, and they got 103 points. So, they easily won this league. League One. 31 wins, 10 draws, 5 defeats, scored 80 goals, and they conceded 36 goals. Conceded 36. Sorry. Do you realize that means so far up until 2026 they haven't conceded more than 38 goals in one season? That's the National League, League Two, and League One. Let's have a look then what happened this season. If we go to the Championship now, they finished 8th. Here they are. So they won 18, drew 16, lost 12, scored 63, and conceded 50. So a little bit of a leakier defense this season, but still pretty impressive for their first year in the league. They got knocked out in the 4th round of the FA Cup and knocked out in the 2nd round of the Carabao Cup by Peterborough. Let me just have a quick look at the competitions as well. Did they manage to claim any other? No, 2025, just that. So there's nothing else in 2026 here. So they didn't do a back-to-back on the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. So they finished 8th. Pretty good. Let's have a look at their finances. £50 million in the bank, £64 million transfer budget. Now, here's where it gets interesting. They're only allowed to make, they're going to breach financial fair play by the looks of that, £15 million. So it could make things very interesting. If they get financial breaches, remember, they could start seeing things like their owners change hands, managers leaving, and everything else. So let's have a look. Eddie Berth has downscaled their funding. Mika Hamilton was removed as captain. They increased their stadium capacity to 61,000. Mika Hamilton removed as captain. Taylor Harwood-Bellis has been appointed, and Bailey Peacock-Farrell, the free transfer from Burnley, was appointed vice captain. In terms of staff, Vincent Kompany is still at the helm. So let's have a look at their team here. Now, their goals this season, top scorer was Say Umar, 13 goals in 42 appearances. He's on loan from Anderlecht. Again, that background with Vincent Kompany. And Liam Delap, who is wanted by Sheffield Wednesday, scored 11 goals in 30 appearances. Bailey Peacock-Farrell, 49 appearances. He conceded 51 goals over the course of the entire season. Not bad. I mean, they've reached the Championship. So what will be interesting now is as we go forward, and we're only going to go forward 1 year now because I think they will fail financial fair play, is they've got to this point really quickly. And this is the point now which separates your League 1, 2 teams, your yo-yo teams between those leagues, to the teams pushing for the Premier League. This is where serious investment is needed. And this is where a lot of clubs fall foul. They haven't really signed any big players. Let's have a look who they signed. They spent £12.5 million. Jay De Silva came in from Coventry for 3. They spent 1.9, which could rise to 6, on Moses Uzoka from Millwall. And that's kind of it. Manuel Benson came in from Burnley, and Freddie Isaka came in from Plymouth for £500,000. Didn't play a game. Last season, they only spent £375,000. David Brooks, their big one, free transfer, released by Bournemouth. Played 4 games. He's actually played 39 this season. The Jay De Silva one is after he was on loan. So, okay. And they signed Ajo Velez. Remember, he had that really good season in League 2. They signed him. And then, did they sign him again last? So they signed him again last season. Sorry, this is last season transfer. On loan again. But couldn't get him back into Blackburn this year. Okay. It's going to be interesting. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, please hit subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and let us know in the comments
what you think. Who would you like to see us do this next to as well? So we're going to jump forward. We're going to see just what happens. And do they fall foul of financial fair play? Let's find out. Right, well, let's have a look how Man City have got on. You can see already on this screen, we have this little Premier Division, or Premier League, it should say, screen here. Now, the reason for that is that Manchester City finished second on goal difference behind Leeds. They are back in the Premier League. That, and considering what they've spent, is sensational. If we just go back to Manchester City and look at their transfers for this season, they spent £7 million. The bulk of that was on Lucas Harrislam from Nottingham Forest. They signed Matty Target, who's 32. But the rest of it, they've actually built a squad of very talented players. You know, Vincent Kompany has taken them from League 2 to the Premier League in 4 seasons. We're in season 5 now, so this is impressive from Manchester City. Yes, they have had that tycoon takeover. Again, we go back, and they have money in the bank. But their transfer budget isn't going to be the biggest. The rich benefactor you can see has gone into the background. He's not foreground anymore, which means he's not just going to plough money in. So can Manchester City really compete in the Premier League? This is what we're going to find out. Because I'm really surprised they got here this quick. Now, they had £141 million come in. Let's see where this came. £24 million of this was from sponsorships. We just bring that down a bit. £92 million was investments from the owner. That is, and obviously there's £23 million in season tickets. So let's have a look if we can. Don't think I can actually break down what their sponsorship is. I mean, I can have a look. Oh, there we go. Let's have a look at their sponsors. So it's not, again, there's £24 million there, but there's nothing on there. So I might do a bit of a deep dive just to find out what that is. But wow. They are back in the Premier League. £572 million. Now, when we started this, by the way, their value was £1 billion. They've halved. But they're back in the big time. Can they compete? That is going to be the big question. Quick look at who scored their goals this season. Clint Hinks, a 20-year-old regen, who's come from their academy. So that thing, everybody always says, Man City don't develop players. Well, they've developed him. Liam Delap got 14. He's been so consistent, yet never really gets much game time. You know, let's have a look. So he was on loan at Hull that first season, but he got 19 in League 2, 9 in League 1, 10 in the Championship, 14 in the Championship. Now he's a Premier League player again. He should be leading that line, really. You got Tajay McGran, played 51 times. He's wanted by Nottingham Forest, 20 years old, came out the academy. This is really Maximo Perrone. Obviously, he was on loan that first season, which is why he's still there, which probably has helped. Although he should have got released, but that because of his age. He was a youth player at the time. He's only 25, of course. This is really impressive. Really, really impressive the way this team's been ran. By Vincent Kompany and by the owners. So let's see how they get on in their first season in the Premier League, and can they compete? Right then, Man City reached the promised land of the Premier League, and it took them 5 seasons. Let's see how they got on. Now, you can see before we even go any further, their bank balance has plummeted. It was, what, 70, 80 million at the end of the last season? They made a profit of £3 million over the season. And this is where their sponsorships are going to really hamper them. Some of them don't expire for a while. I mean, a couple of them, they've all been re-signed to 18.5 for a general sponsorship in the Premier League, 2031. Value's gone down again from 500 million to 387 million. It's really not painting a pretty picture financially. And in the league, it paints an even worse picture. Man City finished rock bottom with 31 points. They won 8 games, 7 draws, 23 defeats, minus 33 goal difference. If we have a look at the staff, they sacked Vincent Kompany. And when did they sack let's have a look when they sacked Vincent Kompany then. I mean, I find that he was sacked in December. Okay. So I find that amazing. Let's have a look at the run that City went on at the start of the season. So they started well. Look at that. You got seven points from your first 3 games back in the Premier League. You're thinking, great. They lost to Rotherham. They lost to Arsenal. 3-3 draw with Everton. And then it just went. I mean, that run there probably did for Vincent Kompany. No wins between the 23rd of August and the 2nd of December. And he picked up 1, 2, 3, 4 points in that time. Wow. Okay, so let's have a look. Vincent Kompany was sacked. 4 years he was in the job. 4 years, and he was sacked. I think it's difficult. I think he did so well to get them to where he did, and then there was no spending, there was no money available, so to sack him. Then Adam Lewis was 11 days he was caretaker manager. Ryan Mason got the job on the 3rd of January and was sacked after 132 days after they got relegated. So they've sacked 2 managers this season. 2 managers. I'd love to see his win percentage, if I can. Let's have a look. I don't know if I can. I mean, I can have a look at the league, obviously. But, you know, he's a manager of 2 clubs. It doesn't tell me on there either. I know there are some skins it shows it on, but on the work the space skin, it doesn't. Okay, so Ryan Mason, you took over, let's say. That was your first game. 1, 2, 3, 4 wins. I mean, he won 6 games. He won more games than Vincent Kompany did. But you still look at that run of games. 19 points he picked up in that second half of the season. That's dreadful. Okay, so they got relegated. Transfers-wise, what did they do? They spent £22 million. Marquinhos was on loan with them earlier in the save, if you recall, when they were in League 2. He was signed for £18.75 million. Nathan Teller was on a free transfer. They got Victor Guzman on loan from West Ham. Umar Sadiq was a free transfer. 32-year-old Nigerian. Just been released by Chelsea. Striker. He scored 10 goals. They got Totti. He was on a free transfer. Obviously, he'd been released by Wolves, I'm assuming. Yes, he hasn't left anywhere. And Damien Turner, a 20-year-old who'd been released by Port Vale. And they signed him. And he doesn't look to have any stats worth signing. I'm very surprised. They sold £3.2 million worth of players and they got relegated. Now, the big thing for Man City is they will get parachute payments. So, you know, there is that side of it. And in the competitions, knocked down the 5th round of the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, they got to the 2nd round. Let's catch up with some of their old players, though. Let's see where the likes of Phil Foden is and how they're getting on. So, Phil Foden, after leaving Manchester City on a free, went to Paris Saint-Germain and he's been there ever since. Pretty much a mainstay of their team, as you would expect for somebody in his position. He scored 15 goals in 29 league appearances this year. PSG, I mean, they are the big fish, aren't they, in France? Another player who went to from Manchester City to PSG is Rodri. Now, he went straight there along with Phil Foden. Maybe they got a house share, who knows? But he played 29 games as well, 1 off the bench, scoring 3 goals in that holding midfielder position. While John Stones, he went over to Saudi. He went to Al Ittihad for 4 seasons, then got a free transfer back to Everton in the Premier League, before going back to Saudi Arabia a year later with Al Wahda, costing £5.75 million. Ederson currently plays out in Saudi as well with Al Nassr. However, when he left Man City, he went with Rodri and Foden to Paris Saint-Germain. And then has just been sold this season, just gone for £14.75 million to the Saudi Arabian team. So that's where those players are. Let's have a look how Man City get on after they've been relegated. We'll jump forward a couple of years and see if they can start competing again. Right then, it's been another couple of years. Let's have a look at how they're getting on. Well, they've just been relegated from the Premier League again. So let's have a look at what actually happened. Now, obviously, we left them after they got relegated last time, which is this season here. So the 29-30 season. This is their first season back in the Championship. They finished mid-table, 11th. Not great. They did, however, bounce back and win the league the year after. And then if we go to this season, helps if I go to the right screens. There we are. You can see Manchester City have once again been relegated at the first time of asking from the Premier League. 28 points, 6 wins, 10 defeats, 10 draws, 22 defeats. Not great. Bank balance 35 million. And they've got a transfer budget of 10 to see who comes back up. Let's have a look at the transfers they've made over the last couple of years then. They spent £37 million the year they were relegated. Victor Guzman, 3.6 million. Asumane Kane from Tranmere. Really? Wow, they signed a League Two player for £5 million. That surprises me. And then the year after that, they actually recouped £98 million that season. How did they do that? Let's have a look. Chris Rossiter went to Brighton for 12.5, and Maximo Peroni went to Sunderland for 23 million, and Nathan Teller, who was a free transfer, went to Hoffenheim for 31.5. So they recouped a lot of the money. The year after, they spent 58 million pounds. Bulk of that money going on Hayden Hackney from West Ham, 29 years old, defensive midfielder, and has been quite a mainstay since. They had him on loan the year before. They also signed Stelios Andre from Juventus and Antoni Mulrooney. Such a random name for a regen, who is a right back. Okay, so then we come to this season. They spent 90. How much did they recoup? 27. They recouped 19.25 million this year. They actually signed Emiliano Martinez from Burnley for 13.25. They signed Frederico Redondo from Argentinos Juniors, who is a centre midfielder, and a couple of free transfers. Tyler Adams, Alessandro Cucati, and Nuno Moira. Okay, so, they've done a bit of business. The managerial merry-go-round, however, has been in full effect at Manchester City. So when we left them, Ryan Mason had just taken over. He was replaced in the July by Vladin Milovic, who, he's not had a terrible time as manager. Let's see where he was before he became Man City manager. He was at Wolves and he'd been sacked as the Wolves manager. And since leaving City, he's gone on to become Salford manager and has been sacked by them as well. So he was sacked after 309 days. He was replaced by Henrik Rydstrom, who lasted 1 year. And since he has left Manchester City, he's become the Sheffield United manager. Okay. He was then replaced by Ben Wilkinson as caretaker manager, who was replaced by Harry Kewell. 173 days in charge and got the sack after they were relegated. And, before that, he was obviously Yokohama manager, where he is actually at the moment, and he'd been there for a long time. So the managerial merry-go-round is well and truly in full effect with Manchester City at the moment. And I think we're going to split this into two parts. We're going to bring you a part 2 of this. So I think that's a good part to end it. Manchester City just being relegated from the Premier League. No manager. I don't think the board has changed. Let's just check, though. So, Eddie Birth scales down funding. He's still in charge. If we go here, he is still there. Something's got to change. Something's got to give at Manchester City if they want to compete. And we're going to find out in part 2 whether it does. Now, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on part 2. That'll be out next week. And we'll be able to see out if they can actually compete or if they are just going to become a yo-yo team. Been promoted twice, been relegated twice. I'll see you then. Make sure you tune in to find out.